Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore, and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And we are going to be talking about something that's not directly related to finances per se, but it definitely can be, and it's something that I see happen all the time. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we do that, just want to say a few things. Number one, thanks for listening today. If this is your first time listening, we just really appreciate you checking it out. Hopefully you get some value from it. And if you did get some value from this show, why don't you do a few things? You could review the show. You could leave a rating. You could share it with a friend. You could come back next week, whatever it might be. But we're just happy that you're here today, right? And you don't need to do any of that either. We just appreciate that you're here checking it out. But there are some people who do listen to the show literally every single week, right? And we love those people, and we just want to acknowledge those people as well. Those are the people that we call our every weekers. It's because of you that we keep doing this show, that this show still stays alive and still stays running after, I think probably going on 4 years now, something like that. So we just really appreciate you and everything that you're doing to support us. And a really good place to, connect with us as well as the other listeners of this show and just everyone in our network of different coaches, different financial coaches. A really good place to connect with us would be our Facebook group. And you can find that on Facebook by just typing into the little search bar the following phrase: the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. So pop in there, say hello, ask a question, start a conversation, whatever you want to do, right? We do a lot of fun stuff in there. We promote a lot of different events that you can come to for free and, get a lot of value from. So check that out and say hi. So with that being said, Maria, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Yeah, happy to be here with you.
What was that?
I said I'm happy to be here with you today.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to be here with you. It's good stuff. Good stuff. So I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and after I hopped off the Zoom with her, I was thinking about it because I knew that we were going to be recording our show today, and I was like, this is actually probably a good topic to talk about. And it's one that I don't really think that we've really touched on this ever before. I mean, maybe we did in passing kind of thing, but not ever really a direct kind of thing, right? And essentially what this conversation was about, and what the episode today is going to be about too, is helping parents deal with their kids when there's a decision that needs to be made around something that they're really wanting or something that they're really passionate about, that either A, doesn't make sense to do financially speaking, or B, you just literally can't do it, right? And then dealing with the emotions from the kids and helping them work through that so that it doesn't turn out to be this big fight or blow up and resentment building between parent and kid. So,
and I would guess that there's probably emotion from the parent as well.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm sure we'll get to touch on all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's cool with you, I think that it probably just makes sense to kind of share, what that call was really all about, and how the conversation went, and what I kind of suggested to this woman, which is something that I've actually been doing with my own kids, and I kind of just came up with this myself, and it's been working really, really well. And then we talk about it a little bit.
That would be great. Set us up.
Okay. All right, cool. So I have a client who has a 14-year-old girl, a daughter, and the 14-year-old is really, really passionate about volleyball, right? So she's enrolled in volleyball. She plays volleyball. She's good at volleyball. She loves volleyball. Everything about it. She loves it, right? And as they wrapped up their season, their coaches were talking to the students and basically told the students, hey, so there's this program in the off season to where, there's like this open gym, and the open gym is for like 8 or 10 weeks, and it's like $10 a week. And, after that, at the end of the open gym, there will be a tryout for like a new league or a new season, in between our season. And if you make that and then you play that season in our off season, then you'll have a better chance of actually like making the team next year, kind of thing.
Okay.
The open gym is $10 a week, not a huge thing. The tryout in itself is $30, not a huge thing. But the season would be $1,500.
Okay.
That's a little bit of a different story,
Yeah.
right?
Is that the season like after all of this? Like this is the off season, but then that would be the season going later?
It's like a season during the off
Or-
season for
Okay,
the
so this
school.
is the season during the off season. Okay, so
Yeah,
they would need to pay this now. It's an immediate thing. Okay,
correct. Yep,
perfect.
yep. But the way that the coaches communicated this to the students was they basically said, if you don't do this,
Yep.
then you're probably not going to make the team next year.
hmm Either the coach presented it that way or the students perceived it that way.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
from talking to the mom,
It was the former. They presented it that way.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So we talked through that, and obviously, when the coaches say that kind of thing to kids,
hmm
it's their whole world.
Right.
So they're like, oh my gosh, like if I don't do this, my life is going to be ruined, kind of thing.
hmm
And well, everybody else is doing it, so I should do it too, kind of thing,
hmm
right? So I kind of talked through that with my client, and I was like, well, first and foremost, you should have a conversation with these coaches, and potentially even a conversation with the coach's supervisor as well, because at least in my observation with this, and granted, I haven't talked to the coaches, I wasn't there, but from just what I've been told, what it sounds like to me is that this is like a discriminatory thing, where it's like, hey, if you're not willing to pay, almost a $2,000 investment, then you're not going to make the team.
hmm
And it's like, okay, well, what if someone is really talented, but they come from money problems? Are you just going to turn them away because they didn't do this thing that you want these kids to do? So that was a conversation in and of itself, right? So I told her, I was like, you need to talk to these coaches, and you need
hmm
to talk to the supervisor of the coaches and have it be something to where these coaches, they say like, hey, there's this option. We would really encourage you to do this. And if you did do it, here's the benefits of it. And here's how it's going to help you with our season next year.
hmm
And then leave it at that. That's how it should be communicated, but it
hmm
wasn't, right?
hmm hmm
Which then really, I mean, because of that was communicated that way, that's what's making this whole thing be so quote unquote like life or death for the child. Does that make sense?
That and she's a 14-year-old daughter. I mean, girl, so there's that too. But yes, that
Right.
makes total sense. Um, yeah. Okay. So how did the mom react to some of that news? Was she there when it was given? Well, she
Um,
must have been if she told
I
you
don't know
how
if
it
she was
was.
there when that was given or not, or if
Okay.
that was something that the daughter just came back and said. Um,
Okay.
but essentially, what had happened is that the client told her daughter that basically they're just not doing it,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
because of that, that started a big fight between her and her daughter. Um, and there's been a lot of tension ever since then. And she came to this meeting and she was just in tears telling me about this because obviously it had affected her, the client emotionally as well. Because she doesn't want to fight with her daughter. She wants to make her daughter happy. She wants to, have her daughter be able to do things that she's really
mhm,
passionate about and things that she's really good at too.
mhm,
So it was a whole big thing, right? So she basically just came to me and she's like, how do I handle this? And that's where the meat and potatoes of this really comes into play. So I asked her, I was like, have you ever considered, allowing her to do the open gym portion of it, but then just not do the tryout and not do the season? Like that way she still gets like those extra reps. She still,
mhm,
is still working on her craft. As far as an investment goes, it's probably going to be less than $100 kind of thing. Have you considered that? And she was like, no, I haven't, because I was just in the mindset of like all in or all out,
mhm.
because my daughter was also in that mindset too. right?
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell you that you should quote unquote compromise, especially if, your daughter's not handling this well, right? But that is an option. And I basically said, like, I asked her, I was like, would that be something that you would be open to now that you've thought about it? And she said, yeah, like I would be okay with doing that. It's 80 to $100. She will get that extra practice. She'll get that extra reps. Um, but when it comes to the season and the tryout, just not able to do that. And I said, okay, well, good to hear that you're at least open to that. And I told her, I was like, if you have a conversation with your daughter again and you bring up that idea, it has to be with the understanding that like she is going to be respectful. And that conversation is going to go well. Because, if you compromise or even if you give in and give her what she wants at this point, because she's already had this big blow up with you that has been disrespectful, she's going to learn that that's how she gets what she wants, kind of thing,
Amen to that.
Yeah. So, and she understood that fully. But that still left the question of, well, how do I have this conversation around the season, the $1,500 investment, and truly making it like a clear no to where we leave things on good terms between mom and daughter. And that's where this really comes into play. So I have found that I've been doing something as well with my kids when like, they don't get what they want or they're upset about something. And it could be something from me saying no, or it could just be upset about something in general, like, hey, this thing that they're trying to do just isn't working and they're getting frustrated, right? It could be with any of this kinds of stuff. And I've been doing this thing to where I've kind of worked it down to a formula and it's been working really, really well.
Why does this not surprise me?
I know. I just tried it one time, like naturally, and it went really well. And I was like, what did I do? And then I broke it down and then I
How
started
do I
doing it again.
formulate this?
Yeah.
I love
I started doing it again and it worked really well again. So here's the formula. Okay. We approach
Grab your
the
pencils, everybody.
situation by remaining calm. That's number one. And that's so important. And it's probably one of the hardest things for parents is that, when we have a kid who's throwing a fit or, is like really angry about something or whatever it might be, it's very easy to match their energy. But we need to control ourselves as parents and then have our kids then match our energy. Right. So that's step number one is like, let's just take a breath and stay calm. That's number one. Then number two is we need to recognize and acknowledge their feelings and what they're actually saying about the whole situation, right? So, for example, with this volleyball thing, it might be, "Hey, sweetheart, I understand that a lot of these kids in your class are doing this, and the idea of not doing it might be really frustrating. You might feel like you're missing out. You might feel like your future in volleyball is at stake." And you don't want to miss out on this, not just because you want to be a part of the group, but also because like you really care about this. Like this is something that you're really passionate about. And when you're not able to do something that you really, really want to do, I can totally understand why that would be really frustrating. So it's okay for you to be frustrated, right? Like that's like the recognition and the acknowledgement part of this whole thing. Right. But then after you kind of do that, you then step into something to where I would say it's like you're affirming their identity. So what I mean by that is when this client was telling me about her daughter and how she, handles volleyball, views volleyball, everything. She said the phrase, she works so hard for it. She puts her blood, sweat, and tears into it, and she's super passionate about it. Right. So what that would look like would be something like this. So after you follow up the recognition side of things, it would be like, but here's the thing that I know about you, and I know that you know about yourself. You're an extremely hard worker. You put your blood, your sweat, your tears into everything that you do, not just volleyball, but everything that you do, but especially volleyball because you're so passionate about it. And you're the type of person who is going to do what it takes to get to where you want to be. I know that about you. And you know that about you. No one is going to control your destiny. You are, because you've shown that over and over and over and over. And that's why I love watching you play, because that shows out when I see your games. That shows out when I see you come home from practice, like you do this because that's who you are. So you affirm that identity, right? Which really kind of empowers them. And then you kind of cap it off with like guiding them with action, right?
Mhm.
To where you say, so because that's who you are, there is no camp or open gym that's going to dictate whether or not you make this team next year. You are. So we can go to the open gym. You can get those extra reps. You can be with your friends. But then after that, the ball is in your court and it's up to you to make this team. And if you're going to be the type of person that I know you are, and if you're going to do the things that you have been up until this point, and you're going to work on your craft, you're going to be consistent with it, and you're going to do things on your own time, you're going to make this team. And that's what you need to do. Investing $1,500, $2,000 into something that isn't necessarily needed isn't the answer of what's going to guarantee you a spot. This
Mhm.
camp is not going to guarantee you a spot. You are. So go get that spot. And that's essentially it. So again, breaking it down,
Mhm.
stay calm, recognize and acknowledge their emotions and feelings, affirm their identity. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Affirm their identity and then guide with action, right? And
Mhm.
what I have found is that when you kind of take that approach, it does a few things. Number one, starting with the calmness side. Again, they're matching your energy and you set the tone. So that's number one. The recognizing and acknowledging side of things. Kids often feel like parents just don't understand. They don't get
Mhm.
it. They're not hearing me. They're not listening to me. They don't care, all that kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
And doing that really negates all of that. Um, Affirming their identity, it really puts the focus on not what they need to do, but more so who they need to be. And it empowers them, right?
Mhm.
No longer are they the victim, but instead they're actually being presented and giving a platform to be the hero of their own story, kind
Mhm.
of thing.
Mhm.
And then, the guiding and the action side of things is just you saying, like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm going to support you in this and I believe in you. And here's the pathway that you can do or that
Mhm.
you can take, right? To get to where you want to be or to have the outcome that you really want, kind of thing. And I think that just taking that approach, it really is it's for a lot of kids, I think that it's a change in pace as
Yeah.
compared to, well, no, you can't do this. Why not? Because I said so,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this, Maria?
Well, a couple. One, I think it's interesting that it takes it away from just the financial side of it as well.
Hmm.
So when you said not, no, just because I said so, I think oftentimes we'll say something like, no, that's not in the budget, or we don't have the money for it, and that starts to actually create, or say like we can't afford it. It starts to create some of those money scripts that you and I have sort
Hmm.
of touched on in the past. And what this does is it kind of takes it out of that context a little bit, and it removes the money part from the identity part. And so I really appreciate that part of it. One of the I hate the word pushback because I'm not pushing back on it, but one thing that did kind of come up for me when you were talking about the very last section of that, when you're like, the only thing that's going to, keep you from being on this team is you. You've got this. You're going to do it, and the ball's in your court. The only thing that came up for me in that was that there really, as true and honest as that statement is, there really is no knowing what the external circumstances will be if those other coaches, really are just going to be jerks and not allow people to come on the team if they hadn't. And so I would probably, without trying to damper that or make it look like she has no control, my only concern would be with all of that being, how do I say it, like pumped up in as part of her identity, like her ability to do that, that if that external circumstances created it where she wasn't able to get on there, and it wasn't because she wasn't good enough, it was just because they're jerks about the whole thing, then I could see that being almost a backfire deflation. But outside of that, I absolutely loved everything. And
Yeah.
I don't even know, as I'm just kind of muddling through this, what the solution would be, like how to restate some of that, except maybe to just acknowledge honestly that there are things that people do that are out of our control. And the only thing that she can do is control how much she practices and how she creates the craft. And even in the event, sweetheart, that you are not accepted on that team for whatever external reason there might be, it doesn't mean you're not a fantastic volleyball player. It means we need to find a different team or something along those lines.
Yep.
So that would
Yep.
be the only add that I would throw into that. And that would be the reasoning for said it.
Yeah. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, because like there are those external forces and we're not Nostradamus over here. Like we don't know what's going to actually happen or not. But
Right.
I think that just acknowledging that, yeah, like, hey, like, at the end of the day, like it is up to you.
Mhm.
However, there are other forces here and other people involved that, maybe don't see it this way. Maybe
Right.
don't have the same values. Maybe don't appreciate, someone who does work really hard kind of
Right.
thing. And if that's
Yep.
the case, then do you want to be on that type of team?
Right. Right. Yeah,
You know?
it's a really good life lesson for the future because there's always going to be those external circumstances that we just don't have no control over. So yeah, that part is the one thing I would change there. The other thing that came up, which is just more interesting to me than any sort of commentary on what you did, was that I think sometimes when our clients or we as parents are defensive or we're like, oh well, we match their energy. I agree with that, but I think sometimes that energy is also in us, and it comes from a place of frustration and guilt, and like we, especially if it's for money purposes and it's not just because it doesn't make sense financially. If it actually does make sense financially and we have put ourselves into a position where we're not able to take advantage of that opportunity when it makes sense, then we get frustrated with ourselves. And that oftentimes comes out as, anger and matched frustration with the kiddo. So I think that I don't know this individual that you're talking about, and I don't know her situation. But I do want to acknowledge that there are sometimes if that feeling rises up in us, it's okay for us not to we don't have to talk to the kids about this at the moment, but for us to just take a step back and go, what did I do to get myself in this situation? And get how do I get myself to a better situation so that when something like this comes about again, some opportunity presents itself, I don't have to say no because of logistics. I get to say yes or no based on the legitimacy of that opportunity.
hmm hmm Yeah. And that's a really good other part of this equation, you know? Um, Probably something that a lot of people might overlook as coaches.
Mhm.
And I say that because I overlooked that.
Mhm.
You say this
Mhm.
to me now, and I'm like, that's a good point. Maybe we should talk about that next time we meet. You know,
Yeah.
because
Well,
I
and I
think.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I
I
was
think.
just going to say one way that I help clients just kind of not just acknowledge that, but prepare for that later on is with what I call an opportunity fund.
Yeah.
And that is something that I know you and I have talked about. I think I actually might have introduced you to that idea a couple of years ago. But it's just that idea of putting aside a little bit of money now in a dedicated opportunity fund so that when an opportunity presents itself, you're in a position that you're able to take advantage of that. And just like on like the whole profit first idea, where it's like you might want to have 10% profit, but you at least start with one so that you get into the habit of putting something aside. It's
Right.
very, very similar to that. I have clients just putting a little bit aside consistently, and it seems empty for a little bit, like, well, Maria, what am I possibly going to be able to do when I have this buildup of, $85 in my opportunity fund? And it's like, that's actually not the point. The point is that we can slowly create that new money habit to get into a spot where we're recognizing that we want to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And when they present themselves, we can decide. So in this case, maybe, that would have been built up to $2,000 by now. And she could have decided, is it an opportunity that we want to take advantage of? And then in this case, maybe not. Like just because they had enough money, that doesn't mean they have to do it. But it would remove that sense of guilt or shame or even just full on frustration and not having done the work, I'm using air quotes for those of you just listening, to be able to say yes if they wanted to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And, the opportunity fund is a huge thing. I have one myself and just used it yesterday,
Yeah, I heard
Um,
about that. That's amazing.
yeah. Yep. So, and I like the idea of, hey, even if it's like $10 a month, like
Hmm.
just do something, um, because I think that's important to create that like abundance mindset
Yep.
versus scarcity all the time,
Yep.
which, if you're a coach that's helping people get out of debt or something like that, the scarcity side of things is something that you have to consistently try and, combat, I guess you could
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
especially with how a lot of people recommend getting out of debt. So yeah,
Yeah. Like
very
scorched
important,
earth and
very
yeah,
important.
I agree. I agree. And remember, you're just setting yourself up to tell people around you, including yourself, who you are actually working to become.
Yep.
And that is super important. So yeah, even if it's just a little bit. So that is one thing I would say. If you are listening today and you don't have your clients doing that, it is something to at least consider working into their plan for sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I love this conversation, Cody. I think it is so important for us to bring to the forefront some of the things that our clients definitely go through that has seemingly little to do with money. And yet, because money touches everything, it's when it's when the financial part meets life that we are made privy to that information, right? Like that's why she brought this to you. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't have talked to you about when she uh, had a fight with her daughter. Like that would have been probably not a topic of conversation. But since it was, it allowed you to kind of shed a little bit more light on the situation and help her to change in some of the areas that money is touching. And so I really appreciate you bringing that to the table here, because I'm sure that our listeners have, if not already, will definitely run across something very similar.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thanks for having me or having the conversation with me as well.
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
it's valuable information, not just for our coaches, for our clients, but even our coaches with their own kids. And like, let's be real, like I did this exact same thing the other night when, my daughter was getting frustrated about how her stick-on nails weren't sticking, uh, and she threw a fit about it. And I was just like, hey,
Hmm.
this isn't you,
Hmm.
like this is who you are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. And it doesn't get any easier as a mom of, 21 and 18-year-old as
yep,
well. In fact, the feels, they get big and so do the problems. But I do
exactly.
really appreciate the approach, and it's one that can be used in all sorts of scenarios. And it's also one that can be used as you're talking to adult children
Hmm.
in order
Hmm.
to help them make some really solid monetary choices with
Yeah,
their money and their opportunities. So yeah, it's really, really great conversation. Thank you.
absolutely. Alrighty, Maria. Well, thanks for having the conversation. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Again, if you got some value from it, feel free to leave a rating, a review, share the show, whatever it might be. But the biggest thing that we want is let's just see you back next week. Let's make this a thing. So we'll catch you guys next week for another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.